It was a peaceful day on Earth when the unthinkable happened. The sun was shining brightly over the cities, birds were singing, and people were going about their usual routines. Yet deep in the far reaches of space, the Galactic Empire was preparing to strike. They had their eyes on Earth, a small planet in the vast galaxy, but they saw it as nothing more than a pawn in their empire. And then, in one moment, everything changed. A young girl from Earth, no older than 16, was caught in the middle of the Empire's plans. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist. She was simply a child living in one of the peaceful cities of Earth. Her name was Emily. Emily had always been fascinated by space, by the stars, by the idea of what lay beyond Earth. One day, she was taken on a school trip to an observatory on the outskirts of the city. It was a day like any other, but it would turn out to be her last. Unknown to Emily, the Galactic Empire had been watching Earth for some time. They had heard rumors of Earth's growing technological advancements and its potential to resist them. They couldn't allow such a planet to exist without their control. The Empire was known for its cold efficiency and ruthlessness, and they had no hesitation when it came to eliminating threats, whether real or perceived. Emily's observatory trip had unknowingly brought her to the heart of the Empire's plans. As she gazed through the telescope, admiring the beauty of the stars, a flash of light appeared in the sky above. At first, it seemed like a shooting star, but it grew larger and brighter. Before anyone could react, a fleet of ships appeared, blocking out the stars above. These were no ordinary ships. They were part of the Empire's terrifying armada. Without warning, the ships began to fire. Energy blasts rained down from the sky, hitting the observatory and causing chaos everywhere. The people who had been enjoying a peaceful day suddenly found themselves under attack. Sirens blared, and panic spread as the Empire's ships unleashed their fury. Emily had been standing near the edge of the observatory, her eyes wide with awe at the sight of the ships above. She had no idea what was happening, but she could feel the heat from the blasts in the air. Just as she turned to run, an explosion tore through the building, sending debris flying. Emily was struck by a piece of rubble, falling to the ground as the world around her went dark. The Galactic Empire had come to Earth, and they had just made a horrible statement. The attack was not just about destroying a building. It was about sending a message. The Empire wanted Earth to know that they were not safe, and they would not be allowed to exist as they were. Emily, a simple human girl, had paid the price for that message. News of the attack spread across the globe like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, but there was little they could do. The Empire's fleet was far too advanced. Earth's military could barely defend against such overwhelming power. The loss of Emily, a young, innocent girl, became a symbol of the Empire's cruelty. It was no longer just an attack on Earth's territory. It was an attack on humanity itself. Families mourned the loss of their loved ones, and communities came together in grief. But amidst the sorrow, something began to stir. There was a sense of unity, of determination, that grew stronger by the day. The people of Earth were no longer content to sit back and let the Empire destroy them. The world may have been in shock, but one thing became clear: Earth was not going to go down quietly. In the quiet corners of Earth's government, leaders gathered to discuss a plan of action. The death of Emily had sparked a fire within them. They couldn't let her death be in vain. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. Earth had to fight back. It had no choice. The leaders knew that they had to act fast. If they didn't, Earth would be wiped out without a second thought. They also knew that they needed something big, something powerful, to stand up against the Empire. The Galactic Empire was far too strong, but Earth had something they didn't expect: the will to fight. The time for peaceful diplomacy was over. Now, Earth would unleash its might. Emily's death was a turning point for Earth. It was no longer just a planet of innocent people. It was a planet that was willing to stand up for itself. The Galactic Empire may have thought they could destroy Earth without consequences, but they had underestimated humanity's power to fight back. As the leaders of Earth began to secretly gather their forces, the cry for vengeance echoed across the world. Every human on Earth felt the loss of Emily, and they would never forget it. The Galactic Empire had just made their first mistake, and they had no idea how much they had just awakened. Emily's life had been taken in an instant, but her death would ignite a revolution that would send a powerful message across the galaxy. Earth would no longer be a target. Earth would no longer be weak. The Galactic Empire had just started a war they couldn't finish. The shock of Emily's death spread across Earth like wildfire. Her name was on every news channel, every social media feed, and every citizen's mind. People in every country mourned her loss, young and old, rich and poor. Emily, an innocent human girl, had become the symbol of everything wrong with the Galactic Empire. Yet, as the grief took hold, something more powerful began to take root across the globe, a burning desire for justice. Families wept for their loved ones, their children, and their future. In the quiet corners of every city, in small towns and bustling metropolises alike, the air was heavy with the weight of loss. But beneath the sorrow, there was a feeling, a shared belief, that Earth could no longer remain passive. The attack on Emily was no accident. The Empire had shown Earth what they were willing to do. They were willing to wipe out innocent lives without hesitation, to send a message that Earth was nothing more than a speck in the vastness of space. But Earth was not going to take it lying down. As days passed, the leaders of Earth convened behind closed doors. There were no cameras, no public speeches, just quiet, tense meetings where military officers, government leaders, and scientists gathered to discuss the impossible. How could Earth stand up to an empire so powerful, so vast, that it had wiped out an entire building and killed an innocent girl with barely a second thought? The military leaders were the first to speak. "We are outmatched," they said. "The Empire's technology is far beyond anything we've ever seen. They have weapons that can obliterate cities, fleets that can destroy planets. We have nothing that can compete." There was a grim silence as everyone in the room processed the truth. But then the scientists spoke up. "Perhaps," said one of them, an older man with glasses perched on the tip of his nose, "we don't need to fight them with the same weapons they have. We can use their arrogance against them." It was this conversation that sparked the beginning of something unimaginable. In secret, the world's most brilliant minds started working on a project that would change the course of history. They called it Project Titan. It was a plan to build a weapon unlike any the Empire had ever seen. A weapon so powerful that it could not only strike back at the Empire, but also remind them that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated. A star destroyer. A ship the size of a small moon, capable of taking on an entire fleet. It was humanity's answer to the Empire's aggression. As the first blueprints were drawn, the task of constructing the ship was assigned to a select group of military engineers and scientists. The construction of the Star Destroyer would be done in the utmost secrecy. The location of the base would be kept hidden from the Empire's spies, and only the most trusted members of Earth's military and government would know of its existence. But as the plan began to take shape, it became clear that this would be no easy task. The Star Destroyer was a massive undertaking. It would require resources from every corner of the globe, and every nation would have to cooperate. For the first time in history, Earth was united under a single cause: survival. At the same time, Earth's leaders worked tirelessly to maintain the appearance of normalcy. They knew that the Galactic Empire would be watching, looking for any sign of resistance. So they carefully controlled the flow of information, keeping the public unaware of the true scope of the project. For now, the world would continue its mourning and grief, while secretly, behind the scenes, a small group of people worked to create the ultimate weapon of revenge. Meanwhile, the Empire had no idea what was coming. Their leaders, high in their towering citadels, were far removed from the life of ordinary humans. To them, Earth was a small, insignificant planet, easily crushed under their boot. They had no reason to believe that the small human race would pose any serious threat. The Empire had dealt with many species over the years, and they always came out victorious. But as they continued their conquests, a whisper began to grow louder in the back of their minds. Earth had potential. The humans had been growing in strength, in numbers, and in technology. Their world, once quiet and peaceful, was now hopped of activity. The Empire could feel something stirring in the depths of Earth, though they had no idea what it was. Back on Earth, the plans for the Star Destroyer advanced quickly. The first prototypes were built. Massive engines, shields, and weapons that were far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. The secret base, hidden beneath the icy mountains of the Arctic, was a hive of activity. Day and night, workers labored to bring the ship to life. The crew was selected carefully. The best pilots, engineers, soldiers, and strategists from all around the world were chosen to operate the Star Destroyer. Each one had a personal stake in the mission. Some had lost family in the attack. Others had seen their cities destroyed. But all of them shared one goal: to bring the fight to the Galactic Empire and show them that Earth would never be their victim. The countdown had begun. The Star Destroyer was nearing completion, and soon Earth would have its answer to the Empire's cruelty. The first whispers of resistance were growing louder. Soon, the world would be reminded that humanity was not so easily defeated. The construction of Earth's Star Destroyer was a well-guarded secret. The world's attention remained focused on the aftermath of the attack, on the victims, on the grief, and on the recovery of their shattered cities. But behind closed doors, the engineers, soldiers, and scientists worked tirelessly. Day and night, their efforts brought humanity closer to their ultimate goal: revenge. The Star Destroyer was not just a ship, it was humanity's defiance, a symbol of their resilience and determination to survive. It was an enormous vessel, built to take on the might of the Galactic Empire. The crew that had been chosen to pilot it knew what was at stake. They had lost family, friends, and neighbors, and they had vowed to never let Emily's death be in vain. As the final components were being installed and tested, a sense of urgency gripped the project. The Empire had no idea what was coming, and Earth's leaders knew that they had to act quickly before the Galactic Empire could strike again. Every moment spent in hiding, every day Earth spent in silence, felt like a dangerous risk. But finally, after months of construction, the Star Destroyer was ready. The ship stood towering in its hidden base, a metallic titan ready to move. Its engines hummed with power, its weapons gleamed with deadly precision, and its shields were nearly impenetrable. The Star Destroyer was a masterpiece of human engineering, a force of destruction that would change the fate of Earth forever. The decision to reveal the ship was made in the dead of night. Earth's military leaders knew that if they gave the Empire even a hint of their plans, they would come under immediate attack. So they had to act with surprise, fast, decisive, and with no room for failure. The plan was simple. Earth's military would launch the Star Destroyer from its hidden base, deep in the Arctic, and they would strike the Empire's closest fleet. Earth would show them that they were not a helpless planet to be bullied. They would show the Empire that the death of one girl was enough to ignite the fury of an entire world. The crew of the Star Destroyer gathered in their command center. They had been briefed, trained, and prepared for this moment. The tension in the air was palpable, but there was also something else, a quiet determination. They knew that when the ship's engines roared to life and its weapons were unleashed, there would be no turning back. "Activate the engines," the commander ordered, his voice steady but filled with purpose. The hum of the ship's powerful engines vibrated through the walls, sending a thrill of anticipation through the crew. The massive ship began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed as it broke free from its icy prison. Above the Earth, the night sky remained clear, stars twinkling in the vast expanse. But soon, the Star Destroyer would shatter that calm forever. With a flash of light, the ship shot into space, breaking through the Earth's atmosphere and heading toward the Empire's closest fleet. The Galactic Empire had no idea that they were about to face the wrath of an entire world. As the Star Destroyer hurtled through the stars, its sensors detected the Empire's fleet, a group of ships that had been sent to monitor Earth's progress after their attack. The Empire's ships were imposing, their weapons powerful, but they were nothing compared to what Earth had now. The Empire's fleet didn't know what hit them. The Star Destroyer entered the battlefield without hesitation. Its weapons fired with terrifying accuracy, destroying the Empire's ships in a matter of seconds. Energy blasts from Earth's advanced technology ripped through the air, disintegrating the Empire's defenses. The Empire's ships tried to retaliate, but they were no match for the Star Destroyer's firepower. "Target the lead ship," the commander ordered, his eyes narrowed with determination. The Star Destroyer's massive guns locked onto the largest vessel in the fleet, and with a deafening roar, they fired. The Empire's lead ship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through space. The remaining ships scattered in panic, but the Star Destroyer wasn't finished yet. One by one, the Empire's ships were destroyed. The battle was over in a matter of minutes. Earth's Star Destroyer had shown the Empire the true power of humanity's resolve. The crew stood in silence, their hearts pounding in their chests as the reality of what they had just accomplished began to sink in. They had sent a message. The Star Destroyer turned back toward Earth, its mission complete. But the war was just beginning. The Galactic Empire may have lost one battle, but they would not give up so easily. They would come for Earth with even greater force. But now, Earth had something the Empire didn't expect: the will to fight. The Star Destroyer returned to its base, its crew exhausted but victorious. They had struck the first blow, but they knew that this was only the beginning. The Empire would not rest until Earth was brought to its knees, but now they would have to face a much stronger, much more determined enemy. The war for Earth's survival had begun, and there would be no turning back. As the crew disembarked from the Star Destroyer, the weight of their victory and the knowledge of the challenges still ahead settled heavily on their shoulders. They had proven to the Empire that Earth was not weak. They had shown them that humans would never bow down. But the road ahead would not be easy. The Star Destroyer had made its mark, but now Earth had to prepare for the true test of its strength. The Empire would come, and they would come with everything they had. Earth had fought back. Now, they would have to fight harder. The sudden attack by Earth's Star Destroyer had caught the Galactic Empire off guard. The mighty Armada, once thought invincible, had been torn apart in mere moments. The human ship, a symbol of Earth's strength and determination, had destroyed the Empire's fleet with unmatched precision. The Imperial commanders had never expected such a swift and brutal response from a planet they considered beneath them. But the Empire was not known for weakness, and they would not allow such an attack to go unanswered. In the grand halls of the Imperial capital, the Emperor himself watched the reports in silence. His face was expressionless, but his mind raced with thoughts of vengeance. The Empire's pride had been wounded, and that was something they would not forgive. "Prepare the fleet," the Emperor ordered coldly, his voice sending a chill through the room. "We will crush this insolent planet once and for all. Show them the true might of the Empire." The Empire's response was swift and overwhelming. Within days, the greatest fleet Earth had ever seen was assembled, far larger and more powerful than the fleet that had been destroyed. Thousands of ships, each more advanced than anything Earth had ever encountered, were dispatched toward the human world. The Empire had no intention of allowing such a humiliation to go unanswered. They would obliterate Earth with the full force of their might, making sure no one dared to challenge them again. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the success of the Star Destroyer had left the people exhilarated. They had proven they could fight back, and their victory had sparked hope across the planet. News outlets broadcasted images of the wrecked Empire fleet, and people cheered in the streets. It was a moment of triumph. However, behind the celebrations, the leaders of Earth knew the truth. This victory, as sweet as it was, had drawn the Empire's wrath. The Empire would not rest until they had destroyed Earth completely. Despite the victory, Earth's military knew that the real battle was still to come. The Star Destroyer was powerful, but the Empire's fleet was beyond anything they had faced before. They had to prepare for the worst. In the depths of their hidden military base, preparations for the next stage of the war began. Earth's leaders gathered once again to plan their next move. The Star Destroyer was Earth's most powerful weapon, but it could not face the full might of the Empire's vast armada alone. More ships were needed, more technology, and above all, more strategy. They would need to outsmart the Empire if they hoped to survive. The Empire is coming, General Warden, the leader of Earth's military operations, said grimly. They will arrive within weeks, and when they do, they will bring everything they have. We need more firepower, more ships. We need to be ready. Across the world, governments scrambled to gather their forces. The Star Destroyer would serve as Earth's front line, but it needed support. Advanced weapons systems were being developed in secret, ships were being built, and new alliances were forged with distant nations. Earth was uniting like never before, putting aside their differences to face the common threat that loomed in the stars. The tension was thick in the air as Earth's forces prepared for the worst. Civilians who had once celebrated their victory were now filled with unease. No one knew exactly when the Empire would strike or how strong their retaliation would be. But everyone knew one thing: Earth was about to enter a war they could not afford to lose. As Earth's forces gathered, the first signs of the Empire's fleet appeared on the edge of the solar system. It was vast. Thousands of ships, each one more terrifying than the last, advanced toward Earth with terrifying speed. The time for waiting was over. The Empire had arrived, and they were ready to finish what they had started. The Star Destroyer sat silently in its hidden base, ready for the battle to come. Inside the ship, the crew had been preparing for this moment for months. The commander of the ship, Captain Reyna, stood at the helm, staring at the massive view screen that displayed the incoming fleet. Her heart raced with both fear and determination. She knew that Earth's survival rested on their ability to hold their ground. "They're here," Reyna said quietly to her crew. "It's time to show them what humanity is made of." With a single command, the Star Destroyer powered up its engines. The ship slowly began to rise from its base, its engines roaring to life as it ascended into the cold void of space. Reyna watched as the vast fleet of the Galactic Empire grew larger and larger on the view screen. The stakes were high. One wrong move, one mistake, and everything could be lost. "All systems online," the chief engineer reported. "Weapons primed, shields at full power." Reyna nodded, feeling the surge of confidence. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The Star Destroyer was ready to face the Empire head-on, but even with its incredible power, Earth's forces were still outmatched. The battle ahead would be the biggest test of humanity's strength and resolve. The battle began with a deafening roar as Earth's fleet engaged the Empire's. The vastness of space became a chaotic battleground, ships darting and firing in every direction. The Empire's armada unleashed a storm of energy blasts, but Earth's ships fought back with every ounce of their power. Captain Reyna, standing at the bridge, directed the Star Destroyer through the chaos. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she issued orders, guiding the ship through the fight. The Star Destroyer's weapons fired with devastating force, taking down enemy ships left and right. It was humanity's moment to shine, but the Empire wasn't going to make it easy. The battle raged on, a vicious back and forth with no clear victor. Earth's fleet was holding its ground, but the Empire's relentless assault threatened to overwhelm them. Captain Reyna knew that the key to their victory lay in their ability to outlast the Empire's force. They couldn't win this battle through sheer firepower alone. They had to outsmart the Empire, strike where they least expected it, and make every shot count. As the Star Destroyer moved deeper into the fray, Reyna's eyes narrowed. The fight had only just begun, but Earth's resolve was stronger than ever. The Empire had no idea what they were truly up against. The Galactic Empire's retaliation was nothing short of overwhelming. Earth's forces, while valiant and united, were fighting a battle on a scale they had never imagined. The Star Destroyer continued to lead the charge, its guns firing relentlessly into the heart of the Empire's massive fleet. But for every ship Earth destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The Empire was relentless. The vast expanse of space had become a battlefield, with every corner filled with the wreckage of destroyed ships. Blazing trails of energy lit up the blackness, and explosions shook the fabric of reality. Earth's fleet was doing its best to hold the line, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on resources. The Star Destroyer, their greatest weapon, was beginning to show signs of strain. It had been through countless battles, but the sheer size of the Empire's fleet was testing its limits. Captain Reyna stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the screen in front of her. The Empire's flagship, a massive dreadnought, was drawing closer with every passing minute. It was a beast of a ship, heavily armored and bristling with weapons. If they couldn't destroy it, the Empire would have complete control of the battlefield. "Prepare to engage the flagship directly," Reyna commanded, her voice unwavering despite the rising tension. The crew, though exhausted, followed her orders with the precision they had become known for. They had fought for so long, too long, to give up now. The Star Destroyer shifted position, its engines roaring as it sped toward the enemy flagship. The crew knew this was their final chance to turn the tide. If they didn't destroy the dreadnought now, the entire fleet could fall. The stakes had never been higher. As the Star Destroyer closed the distance between itself and the massive dreadnought, the tension reached a fever pitch. Captain Reyna's hands gripped the command chair as the ship's targeting system locked onto the flagship's weak points. It was a risky move. If they missed, they would be exposed to the full wrath of the Empire's firepower. But it was a gamble they had to take. There was no other choice. "Lock all weapons on target," Reyna ordered. The crew worked in synchronized harmony, the clicking of buttons and the hum of the ship's machinery filling the command center. The Star Destroyer's guns aimed directly at the dreadnought's weak points, its engines, its weapon systems, and the vulnerable power core hidden deep within. The dreadnought fired first. Massive energy blasts screamed toward the Star Destroyer, striking the shields and causing the ship to shake violently. Sparks flew from the consoles, and the crew braced themselves for the worst. But the Star Destroyer's shields held. They were holding, but only just. "Return fire," Reyna commanded, her voice steady. The ship's weapon systems fired in unison, each blast a concentrated force of destruction aimed at the dreadnought's core. The impact of each shot sent shockwaves through space, as Earth's finest weapon collided with the Empire's greatest creation. The dreadnought groaned under the pressure, its shields faltering. But it was still fighting back with everything it had, its turrets raining fire upon the Star Destroyer. The battle was now a game of survival. Every second counted. "We need to hit it harder," one of the officers shouted. "Its shields are nearly down, but we're losing power." Reyna knew they were close. The flagship's defenses were nearly breached, but they couldn't afford to make another mistake. If they didn't finish it now, the Empire would use its remaining forces to tear them apart. "Ready the final strike," Reyna ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos. The crew worked quickly, preparing their most powerful weapon, a concentrated energy blast that could tear through any shield. It was their last resort, and they needed to be sure it would hit. "Firing sequence initiated," the weapons officer reported. The tension in the room was palpable as the countdown began. Reyna's heart pounded as the ship's targeting system locked onto the dreadnought's power core. It was a risky move. They were putting everything into this one shot, and if it didn't land, Earth's fleet would be doomed. Fire. With a deafening roar, the Star Destroyer's ultimate weapon discharged. The massive energy beam streaked through space, faster than the speed of light. It collided with the dreadnought's power core, sending out a blinding explosion of light and energy. For a moment, Everything was silent. The light from the explosion was so intense it illuminated the entire battlefield. Then the dreadnought erupted into a massive explosion, its core shattering in a violent shockwave. The blast spread across the Empire's fleet, taking out several smaller ships in its wake. Earth's fleet cheered in unison. The battle temporarily paused as the dreadnought was reduced to nothing but debris. But victory came at a cost. The Star Destroyer was heavily damaged from the attack, its systems failing one by one. The crew struggled to maintain control, but the damage was too severe. They had dealt a devastating blow to the Empire, but now they had to get out. "We need to retreat," Reyna shouted, realizing that they could not risk staying any longer. "Get us back to Earth. Now." The Star Destroyer's engines sputtered, but the ship slowly began to turn toward Earth. Behind them, the Empire's fleet was in chaos. Without their flagship, they were disorganized, and many ships were already retreating. But Earth was not out of danger yet. They had delivered a decisive blow, but the war was far from over. As the Star Destroyer limped back toward Earth, its crew, though battered and exhausted, knew they had just made history. They had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had struck back against an empire that thought itself invincible. But the fight was not over. The Empire would regroup, and they would return. And when they did, Earth would be ready. The aftermath of the battle left the galaxy reeling. Earth's Star Destroyer had succeeded in destroying the Empire's flagship, but the cost had been devastating. The mighty ship was crippled, its systems barely functioning, and its crew exhausted from the grueling fight. Still, they had done what many thought impossible. They had struck a crippling blow to the Galactic Empire. However, the Empire was not one to surrender easily. The fleet had been thrown into disarray, but its vast resources and unmatched determination meant that it would only be a matter of time before they launched a counteroffensive. Earth's forces had tasted victory, but they knew it would not last long. They had bought themselves a little breathing room. But the fight was far from over. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. People celebrated the defeat of the Empire's flagship, their spirits lifted by the idea that humanity had proven itself capable of standing up to one of the most powerful empires the universe had ever known. But deep down, the leaders of Earth knew the truth. The Empire would return, and when they did, it would be with even greater force. In the war rooms beneath the surface of Earth, military leaders gathered once again. They had only a small window of time before the Empire regrouped. General Warden, who had been at the forefront of the battle, stood at the head of the table. His face was weary, but his eyes burned with resolve. "We've won a battle, not a war," General Warden said, his voice low but commanding. "The Empire is rebuilding, and they will come back stronger than ever. We need to prepare for their return, and we need to do it now." The room fell silent. Everyone knew how dire the situation was. The Star Destroyer was Earth's strongest weapon, but even with its incredible firepower, it had almost been destroyed in the last battle. Earth had no choice but to press forward and prepare for the coming storm. They needed new strategies, new weapons, and they needed them fast. "We can't fight the Empire alone," one of the officers spoke up. "We'll need allies. We've made contact with a few other races who oppose the Empire, but we need more. The Empire has vast resources, and we're running out of time." The room erupted in a flurry of discussions and ideas. Earth had already proven it could hold its own against the Empire, but the truth was, they couldn't win this war without help. Their enemies had grown overconfident, underestimating the power of humanity. But the stakes were now higher than ever. The Empire would not allow such a humiliating defeat to go unpunished. "Let's start making those alliances," General Warden commanded, "and start preparing for the next phase of the war. We'll need more firepower, and we need to know what the Empire is planning next." In the distant reaches of space, the Galactic Empire was already mobilizing its forces. Their defeat had been a shock to their leadership, but they had never been a people to back down from a fight. The Emperor was furious, his pride wounded by the loss of their flagship. His advisors whispered among themselves, and the Emperor's cold eyes burned with hatred. "Make no mistake," the Emperor declared in the war room, his voice cold as ice. "Earth's resistance will be crushed. We will unleash everything we have, and we will burn their cities to the ground. They think they can stand against the Empire. We will show them what true power is." The Empire's new fleet began to assemble, larger and more powerful than ever before. The Emperor's new weapon was nearly ready, something that would make the Star Destroyer look like a toy. Earth's leaders could only imagine the horrors the Empire was preparing to unleash upon them. "We'll send a fleet so large that even Earth's most powerful weapon will be useless," the Emperor's chief admiral said, standing before the Emperor. "They will have no chance to escape or fight back. We'll make an example of them." Meanwhile, Captain Reyna and the surviving crew of the Star Destroyer were working tirelessly to repair their ship. Despite the damage, they refused to give up. Their battle with the Empire had sparked a fire within them, a desire for revenge, not just for Earth, but for the fallen comrades who had given everything in the last battle. Reyna stood in front of the damaged Star Destroyer, her eyes focused on the massive ship as workers and engineers scrambled to restore it. Despite the battle damage, the ship's engines were functional, and its weapons still packed a punch. It wasn't enough, though. The Empire's response would be more than Earth could handle on its own. "Captain, we've got an incoming transmission," an officer called from behind her. Reyna turned around, raising an eyebrow. It was a secured channel, encrypted with the highest level of military clearance. She stepped forward, her fingers tapping a series of commands into the console. A holographic image of General Warden appeared in front of her, his face stern. "Captain Reyna." General Warden's voice crackled through the static. "The Empire is regrouping. We need to accelerate our plans. Earth is going to need more than the Star Destroyer to survive this next wave. We're bringing in reinforcements. We've made contact with a few new allies, but time is running out." Reyna nodded, her jaw tightening. The realization had finally hit her. The true war was just beginning. The Star Destroyer would be the key to their survival, but it could not stand alone. They needed more ships, more technology, and more fighters. Earth had to prepare for the fight of its life. As the Empire's new fleet grew closer, Earth's defenses were being put into place. Weapons were being upgraded and alliances were forged. The clock was ticking, and the fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of those who dared to stand against the unstoppable might of the Empire. In space, the calm before the storm was over. The vast fleets of the Empire and Earth were about to collide, and the universe would never be the same again. The galaxy held its breath as the last remaining forces on both sides prepared for the final showdown. Earth had gathered every ally it could find, and the Star Destroyer had been fully repaired and upgraded. Despite the damage it had sustained, the ship's legendary firepower was now even more deadly, and its crew was more determined than ever to stand against the Empire. But no one knew if it would be enough. The Galactic Empire, bruised but not broken, had unleashed their greatest weapon yet. Their new fleet was like nothing Earth had seen before, immense, powerful, and merciless. The Emperor's wrath would not go unpunished. He had vowed to wipe Earth from the stars, and now the time had come. In the war rooms beneath Earth's surface, military leaders and commanders gathered. The tension was unbearable, with everyone aware that this would be the decisive moment in the war. Every strategy had been accounted for, every contingency prepared. But despite all the planning, there was a single undeniable truth. No one knew how this battle would end. General Warden paced back and forth in front of the large holomap of the galaxy, his face etched with the weight of responsibility. "This is it," he said grimly. "We hold them off here, or we lose everything." Captain Reyna stood beside him, her eyes focused on the map. The Star Destroyer had moved into position at the front lines, with the newly formed Earth fleet and their alien allies lining up behind it. Ships from countless races now stood together, united in their defiance against the Empire. The fleet loomed in the distance, a dark mass of enemy ships that seemed to fill the space around them. At the center was the Empire's flagship, an enormous ship of destruction that dwarfed even Earth's mightiest vessels. The Empire's new weapon, a battle station that could erase entire planets, hovered ominously in orbit. Earth had no choice but to fight with everything it had. Reyna looked up at the screen in front of her, her mind sharp as she surveyed the massive fleet before them. "General, we don't have much time. We need to engage now, or they'll pick us off one by one." General Warden nodded. "You're right. Prepare for the attack. Our allies are with us, but we need to push hard from the beginning. If we give them even a second to regroup, we'll lose." The battle began with a deafening roar as Earth's fleet fired the first shot. The Star Destroyer led the charge, its weapons unleashed in a storm of laser blasts and missiles, tearing through the advancing Empire forces. The air seemed to crackle with energy as the two fleets collided, a war of titanic proportions unfolding in the vast emptiness of space. Reyna's hands gripped the command console as the Star Destroyer returned fire, each blast a testament to humanity's strength. The ship's weapons were devastating, but the Empire was relentless. It fired back with equal ferocity, and soon the battlefield was nothing but a blur of flashing lights and exploding ships. All weapons focused on the flagship, Reyna ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "If we take out the flagship, we'll take down their command structure. We can't let them control this fight." The Star Destroyer surged forward, cutting through the enemy fleet like a blade. With every explosion, every ship that went down, Reyna's resolve grew stronger. She could feel the weight of humanity's fate on her shoulders, but she would not back down. The destruction of Earth's enemies would not come easy, but they had earned the right to fight for their survival. Meanwhile, the Empire's flagship loomed closer, its guns roaring as it fired toward the Star Destroyer. Each blast shook the ship, but its shields held, pushing forward through the barrage. "We've got to get closer to that flagship," Captain Reyna shouted over the intercom. "Full speed ahead." The Star Destroyer surged, and the battle around them intensified. The Empire's fleet was enormous, but Earth's forces fought with a ferocity that had never been seen before. Every ship in Earth's fleet was engaged in brutal combat with the enemy, some holding their ground while others fell. But humanity was not ready to give up. With every passing minute, it became clear that the Empire had underestimated Earth. Its fleet was resilient, its weapons powerful, and its people determined to win at any cost. As the Star Destroyer finally closed the distance to the Empire's flagship, Captain Reyna saw her opportunity. "Target the flagship's power core," she commanded. "This is our moment." The Star Destroyer's guns fired one final devastating shot toward the flagship's power core. The beam cut through the void, striking the heart of the enemy ship with a cataclysmic explosion. The flagship erupted into a massive fireball, sending shockwaves through the Empire's fleet. The battle shifted instantly. Without their flagship, the Empire's fleet began to fall apart. Their coordination faltered, and their ships were left vulnerable. Earth's fleet seized the opportunity, launching a full-scale assault, overwhelming the remaining Imperial forces. "Victory is within our reach," General Warden's voice crackled through the comms. "Push forward. For Earth." With the destruction of the Empire's flagship, the remaining enemy ships began to retreat. Earth's forces, though battered and bruised, held the field. They had done the impossible. Against overwhelming odds, they had won the war. The Empire had been shattered, its power broken, and Earth stood victorious. The surviving ships of the Galactic Empire fled into the dark reaches of space, their hopes of domination dashed. The people of Earth, their allies, and the galaxy at large stood in awe of the unthinkable triumph humanity had just achieved. As the dust settled on the battlefield, Captain Reyna stood on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, her hand still gripping the command console. The battle was over, but the war had left its mark. Earth had won, but they had paid a heavy price. Thousands of lives had been lost, and many ships had been destroyed. But despite the destruction, There was hope. The galaxy would remember this day, the day that Earth fought back and proved that no empire, no matter how vast or powerful, could ever truly conquer humanity. Earth had triumphed, and the galaxy would never be the same.